Hi, welcome to Matt's Garage. Now that we've demolished our perfectly functional house, we've excavated the foundations, poured the footings, and now we're forming up the stem walls. We'll take you through the foundations, as well as the utilities, including sewer, water, and electrical, and then talk about some lessons learned.
Hey everyone, I'm just going to run you through how the whole foundation thing works because you rarely get to see them in this, in this stage of construction. Basically, there's two rebar running horizontally through the footing, and these L bars, they go in and once you pour the concrete, you dip these in and tie them underneath the rebar, and that's what gives you the uplift strength. And then you tie rebar onto your L rebar and then make a grid and form your stem walls. Okay, so it looks like an upside down T basically, and your wood framing goes on top of that. One of the considerations is how high to set it. And if you live in a place without height restrictions, it's kind of entirely up to you. We were setting ours pretty high so that we can slope away from the house and get good drainage swales all the way around the house, as well as maximize the view in the back. So you guys know I'm going to be doing a lot of welding in my shop once this is over. I really wanted to have a good grounding system for the house. Plus this is kind of required by code now in this area. It depends on your area, but this is called a UFR ground. It's named after the guy who invented it for the army, some army project down in New Mexico or Arizona something. Many years ago, they wanted to make sure if lightning struck an ammo storage place, it would have a direct path to ground. So the way this works is, same as those L rebar that I showed you earlier, these come all the way up above your stem wall, and they tie into the bars that run through your footing. And then I asked Rod, my concrete guy, to actually weld this to the crossbars in the stem wall. So you're going to have, that's Rod back there. So you're going to have great ground straight to earth through your footings. I'll probably also do a grounding rod, but this is a far superior grounding system. This green tag is the L&I, Labor and Industries sign off for this. So this is signed off and ready to go. So when I have my electrical panel up here, the ground will come here to an acorn and then ground to the other UFR that's sticking up there. You can see the pink flag. Have a great, so every time I zap it, it doesn't like take all the energy out of Mrs. Matt's garage when she's shredding on the Fender amp, you know what I'm saying? Am I in the frame?
Oh my gosh, be careful.
Am I in the frame? I mentioned in an earlier episode I need to update the meter. They've done that. They put a 1-inch meter in this meter box, and then my plumber came in and put this double backflow preventer. One lesson learned is never take your eye off the work. Like, these guys were clearly competent. They knew what they were doing, but like, it's angled like 2 degrees this way. Doesn't affect function, just drives an OCD guy like me crazy. So I wish I'd been around to be like, hey, can you put that on straight? It doesn't really matter in the end. We'll put a bed of sand and this valve box goes over top of it and I'll forget about it. It just annoys me that it's there like that. And then I had them put in a hose bib, basically, so I have construction water during construction, and that we've already used that a ton, so that's really good. The electrical meter is signed off, installed and signed off and functioning. As you can see, Rod's been powering his stuff with it. I just wanted to share a couple lessons learned. One is sometimes the instructions from your utility don't match up with what your field guys want. Like, I had bare copper ground here, and they didn't accept that. They wanted a shielded copper ground, so that was a pain. Other thing is, I sprung for the meter base with the 220 outlet, which if you've got a sub who really wants that is great, but it ended up costing me a lot more because I had to get a GFCI fuse or circuit breaker for this to replace the one that came with it because it was a regular one, and this is a very expensive circuit breaker. It's like 170 bucks. So that was kind of a waste, but if I've got a sub who's got a 220 volt air compressor or something, he'll get more use out of it, but doesn't really benefit me, if that makes sense. And then I've got my extension cable plugged in here, and that runs to the container, which we're going to walk over to now. Welcome. So this runs back to that thing I just plugged in. And I've got it set up so that when I'm in here, I can just go like that. I got my light, I got my chargers, my tools and everything. Actually, all I really need is my tape in here, but come on in. You guys remember the table and the arm I used to record on Matt's garage? And so I keep my official permit set of plans in here with all my permits so that I'm never, like, I can just give the combination to a contractor like Rod that I trust, and he can let the inspector see the drawings and stuff. So this is also my mobile project management area. That's why I hung my old garage lights from the garage here, and this is where we're storing stuff. So it's good to have a home base that's covered and out of the elements. A bit of a luxury, but you can always like create a shed or reuse a shed or something like that when you're doing a project. Now I have my tape. We're going to go check out the sewer situation. My septic tank is scheduled to be basically 20 feet off of this wall over there. I got to get my sewer out of the crawl space. If it starts out right below this wood member over there on the house, by the time it falls enough to get out of the house here at 1/4 inch per foot, it's about 14 or 15 inches down. So I'm just calculating where I want this to exit on the wall. We're standing in the middle of the footprint basically, and I just want to talk about how there's different heights of stem walls. And that's because in some places, like up there, the joists hang off of the top of wall because you've got an exit out onto a patio. If you didn't do that, like when you step out onto your patio, you want that part that's touching your house to be concrete so that if you wash your patio down, it's not hitting up against wood. You can get around that by doing waterproofing, but it's just much better to have something that's not going to rot. So that condition exists right there on the covered patio and over there at the front entrance of the house. So in those locations, the top of wall is actually the top of joist, whereas everywhere else, the joists sit on top of the wall. So that the top of wall is the bottom of joist, as if that's not confusing. And then the garages are at different levels. So Mrs. Matt's garage, which is right there, we're going to step down into, which is pretty typical. And then my garage, which is over there, it's going to be another foot down from Mrs. Matt's garage. So it'll be 3 steps down from the house into there. So that's just the general planning we're doing, is what heights go where.
So Matt, you talked about the footings that outline the house.
Yeah.
What about these piers?
Yeah.
And the footing that kind of juts out into the space here?
So the floor joists, they run from that wall all the way to that wall, basically, right? And that's what holds our floor up. But it's too long a distance. Like it would turn into a trampoline because of the leverage, right? So these piers exist to hold up, to bridge, that effect across the whole footprint, so that you got a nice rigid floor. Okay.
Sure.
And also that, depending on the location of the pier, and because we've designed it for a big open space, it'll transfer some of the weight that's on the walls down to the footing in the interim, right? So you get good structure on the inside. This one ties into that much thicker footing. It's like 24 inches thick, which is way overkill. The structural engineers these days, they just, nth safety factor, totally unnecessary. But that basically is seismic uplift countering. So when there's an earthquake, it sort of keeps the house squat, and it's just gravity, it's ballast. And that carries through to here, and these are threaded bolts, that'll have a seismic strap that goes up and ties this wall down that's up here. So it's seismic is the short answer. Clear as mud?
Clear.
Okay.
I actually have some video of various stages when they were pouring these footings and these piers. Maybe we can show that as well.
All right, so we'll cut away to what was happened between demo and this.
Next time you see us, we'll be pouring the stem walls and waterproofing and getting ready for backfill.
See you next time on Matt's Garage.